Hey everybody, this is my brother John. John's 4 years younger than me, although he looks a lot older than I do. John's been on my channel one time. It was at his house 4 years ago on a live stream. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So he's in town visiting, and last night we were listening to Van Halen, and we were actually playing the raw tracks of On Fire, which is now a lot of the stuff is available because of Sunset Sound, whatever reason, these things have come to light. And this is the, what I was talking about. I'll play it here through the mic, but. Okay, so the topic came up about how perfectly these parts are played. And then as John and I were talking about this, Phil X FaceTimed me. Now, John doesn't know Phil at all. I introduced him. And we started right in on Van Halen. Just to start with this On Fire guitar part, it doesn't matter whether you hear it in the track. When you hear it outside of the track, it sounds equally as great. And we were talking about the sound, the tuning, when he plays those sus2 chords.
There's like a sponginess to that distortion sound that just can never be duplicated.
How is it that Eddie played so perfectly? Do we listen to the room tracks from Eruption? And it's obviously done in one take. And then we went and listened to Eruption played, it says 1977 at a live show, and it's a very different version of it, but it's equally incredible.
I don't know if his background as a pianist and originally as a drummer lent itself to how he approached the guitar. He took the guitar in a wildly different direction in 1978. People are still fascinated.
How many other guitar players do you actually listen to isolated tracks of? Not many. What was Phil talking about? What harmonics was he talking about? In what solo?
Somebody get me a doctor. Again, I go back to the sound. The sound is just, and you know, people will say as Van Halen went on over time that the sound got a little bit more processed. But those first 4 albums are just...
What do you think his best guitar sound is on there? Which record is the best guitar sound?
Well, I think it'd be between 1 and Fair Warning. I mean, that beginning to Unchained. Cannot be duplicated.
We were talking with Phil about the delay, whether Eddie had 1 repeat or 2 repeats with his Echoplex. And you thought 1, Phil thinks a couple.
Yeah, maybe 1 less so pronounced in there.
But other than that, there's really just what in front of the amp?
A Phase 90.
Right.
A flanger.
Right.
An MXR 6-band EQ. And the Echoplex. I think that was slammed in front of the Marshall. And then with plate reverb added after the fact. I remember the first time we heard it on record, we're like, what is that?
People don't know this story. So I got my first electric, which was I don't know what year Les Paul. It was one of these fretless Wonder Les Pauls that was
about a 1968, I think.
Something like that. It was just a couple $100. It was pretty beat up. I ended up getting a white custom and gave John the black custom. I thought John traded it away for a Kramer. What's the real story with this?
Yeah, so I traded that Les Paul for an ES 335
When I was in college, so I didn't know.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
you would have probably killed me. And then I traded that ES 335 for my first Kramer Pacer.
Okay, and why did you get that? Well, we'll tell them what you did with the Kramer, though.
Well, I had the fingerboard scalloped on it almost immediately because of, another gentleman that you had here recently.
Ingve.
Yeah. I mean, that's the effect that Eddie had on guitar players at that time. Perfectly reasonable decision at the time. In retrospect, I guess having that Les Paul would be kind of okay too, but I never thought about it.
But the difference in our age, though, was the difference in this type of music that we liked. I got more into jazz, fusion, things like that, because that was bigger, the 4 years, just that difference in age. You came up during the MTV era when I was in college, and I missed MTV, really, at that point.
Yeah, so I was exposed to, after Van Halen, bands like Rat and Dokken and all those wonderful guitar players of the 80s that took what Eddie did and, in a lot of ways, they were just trying to copy what he did and put their own spin on it.
But Eddie was the first person that we saw, even though there are taps in songs like Kid Charlemagne, for example. There's a tap in the guitar solo.
There is.
One tap note.
But again, with Eddie, it's not just the solo playing. It's the rhythm playing. It's the sound. It's the songwriting.
Right.
That it was the whole package of full-on rock and roll at its finest.
So we started talking with Phil about the tuning, and Phil was saying how it's not just the B string tuning on some songs.
Sometimes it's the high E string.
Well, it's the E string and B string, depending on what parts are being played and what chords are being played. If he's playing triads, let's say A major shape on the D, G, and B string, just straight across on one fret, he tunes the B string slightly low. But then if there's stuff to be played on the high E, you need to tune the B low as well. And these are things that they would do by ear to get these.
Yeah, with the high
things.
gain, it would calm the overtones
You
to
wouldn't
the
get all
point
the
where
be-
it would be like very pleasing to the ear.
Yeah, you wouldn't get the beating. And on Fire, when he plays those sus2 chords, they're so in tune. Okay, we're going to do a quick demonstration on the tempering of the B string. John has set up his Boss tuner here to E flat. John, play your B string and show what the tuning is here. Tom, can you look at that? So it's perfectly in tune. All right, so if John plays Running with the Devil, for example, which is a song that would need that tempering. As you can hear, that B string sounds sharp. It does not sound great. Now tune it by ear, John. Now let's look at it on the tuner and see what it looks like. So it's very flat. It sounds great, but when you see it on the tuner, you notice it's very, very tuned down. Now, on a song like On Fire, unlike Running with the Devil, you actually are using the high E string with these sus2 chords. You actually have to temper that, because if you don't temper both strings, it sounds like this. Hear that high string is really sharp. Okay, now we tune the E string to match the B. John, play that same part now with the tuner. See how perfectly in tune that sus2 chord is? Well, this is why you would temper those intervals. That's why Eddie tempered the intervals. If you played a major chord with distortion and you'd had that third was up too high, you'd lower it and it's, oh, that's way better.
Well, even some of their tunes in general are a couple cents off just in general tuning.
Right, because they're just tuning to each other.
Yeah, and then they would tune the bass to the guitar, and that's it. I mean, that's all you needed.
Love to know what you guys think about our discussion here. Leave a comment, hit the subscribe button. Thanks, John, for being here. See you later.